you. All right. The Scituate School Committee is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcomed and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. Right? With that, we'll call the Mayo, that's right. The May 5th, 2025 school committee meeting to order at 6:01. And we will start here with public comment. Seeing no one remotely or in person raising hand, let's go on to our student report.
Perfect. Our SHS May 5th update for the school committee. Sports-wise, our spring sports teams continue to impress. The following teams currently have winning records: boys lacrosse, boys track, boys tennis, and girls golf. Unified track has also started their season, and they are off to a great start. On Tuesday, April 29th, Mr. Payne made this event a Class Cup event to increase attendance, and the meet was very well attended. Principal Ranger hosted his second annual AP breakfast on Wednesday, April 16th, for any student taking one or more AP courses. Scituate High School has 364 students taking one AP course or more. The breakfast is very well attended. Congratulations to PE teacher and coach Kathleen McCarthy, who will be receiving the MIAA Distinguished Women in Sports Award at Gillette Stadium on May 20th. The National Honor Society induction also took place on Wednesday, April 16th at 6 p.m. It was a great event. Congratulations to all of this year's inductees. The Patriot League will host its Scholar Athlete Banquet on Tuesday, May 6th, tomorrow night. Congratulations to myself and Jane Ryan, who will represent Scituate High School at that. The Cyber Sailors have qualified for the 2025 Massachusetts State FRC Championship event on May 31st at Lawler Rink at Merrimack College. The top 24 teams in the state will be competing. Scituate High School store, the Shipyard, received the National Gold Level Operations Retail Gold Standard at DECA Nationals. DECA will compete in Nationals on Saturday, or DECA did compete in Nationals on Saturday, April 26th. To Wednesday, April 30th, and the following students have qualified: Ben Hill and Calvin Anderson in Sport and Entertainment Marketing event, Bailey Young and Savannah Garabedian in Financial Team event, Caden Levangie, Molly Quirk, Taylor Tortolet, Roman Glowak, and Ashton Seymour in the SBE School Store Certification Gold Level Status, and Griffin McGurr and Aiden Toomey in the Travel and Tourism Marketing event. Guidance news: all rising 10th through 12th grade students have selected their courses for next year. Thank you to our counselors for reviewing graduation requirements and working with students to map out their academic plans. AP exams have also started this week with a record amount of students taking the exam. Best of luck to all of our AP students. That's all we have.
All right, thank you so much, Willis. Have a good one. All right. Okay, we're just going to take two items out of order tonight. We're going to have Dr. Rabb present next real quick, just with a surplus, and then we're going to have our history and social studies department go right after that, so you all can go on to other things that I know you have to do. All right, I'll turn it over to Dr. Rabb for the Wampatuck Elementary surplus.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm going to share an email. You have a copy of it in your packets that I received from Mrs. Reardon, the principal. Basically, this is a variety of student desks that are old and rusty. We've been slowly replacing student desks at Wampatuck. We started this year, we'll continue next year. And then some other small items, some stools, some of the old machines that we had from COVID, an old two floor clearing machines, and two-wheeler air-filled tires. So all of these things are really beyond their useful life. Certainly we'll look around if any other surrounding district or anybody has interest in them, we'll let them go. But otherwise, they're really just ready for recycling at this point. So I would ask the committee for a vote to declare them obsolete.
Great, thank you. Take a motion on those desks. Anyone? Or Janice? Anyone or Janice?
I make a motion that the school committee vote to approve, to approve the Wampatuck Elementary surplus as presented.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, Dr. Rabb.
Thank you.
Okay, and next we'll go to our History and Social Studies Department Chair, Ms. Lesniak.
Hi, everybody. And thank you for going a little out of order. I know the students have AP review that they're aiming to get to. So each year, the Social Studies Department, I come before you guys to talk about this, collaborates with the Scituate Post 144 of the American Legion to run the American Legion Oratorical Contest. This is actually the 16th year that we've done this. And it really is a testament to the American Legion veterans that we do this. And I'm sad they must have gotten held up tonight that they couldn't be with us, but it really is a testament to them. Chapters all around us have been unable to offer this for years and years. Actually, they're shuttering in a really sad way. And so it's a real testament to them and their fundraising efforts that they do all throughout the year that they're able to offer pretty significant scholarships to the top students. This year too, we also had over 8 contestants, which is amazing because if you remember, the qualifications for this contest is that students pick a topic of the Constitution or pick a section of it, independently research it, and then speak for 8 to 10 minutes with no notes, which is quite a tall feat. And then for students that actually go on to the regional competition, they're given amendments that are pulled out of a hat that they have to speak sort of off the cuff about, also with no notes. So it is quite a task. It is quite a feat for students. And tonight we have the 3 winners. And like I said, I am sad. I do want to give credit where credit is due to Bob Callahan, Dennis Bador, and Kevin Walsh, who are the American Legion veterans who I work most closely with. And like I said, they are the ones out canning throughout the year. They're the ones collecting the money, and their scholarships total over $1,000 every year. So this year, I just want to recognize our students because they're here. The 3rd place winner was junior Summer Crowley. She could just say hello. Summer's speech focused entirely on how freedom of religion is essential to our democracy and that the role that our government has in making sure that this freedom is maintained. So Summer, congratulations, and I'll make sure you get your scholarship. Junior Mason Alvarez was here last year. He competed and placed again this year, and he earned 2nd place. So Mason's speech focused on how the right to assemble is essential in helping to create domestic tranquility. He advocated that Americans must relearn the power of peaceful protest in order to create positive change. Mason actually advanced from our local competition to the regional competition and then also qualified and participated as one of only 4 students at the state level competition. So congratulations to Mason. And this year, our 1st place winner was junior Alexa Tracy. Alexa's speech passionately advocated for free speech, the free speech in the First Amendment, specifically in selection of books. And Alexa advocated that Americans must not let any political views overshadow the freedoms in the First Amendment, and that freedom to select the books that challenge us and inspire us is what's essential to our democracy. Alexa also advanced to our regional competition and also competed at the state level competition, so congratulations to her. So I will connect with our veterans and make sure that our students get their scholarships. But I really do feel like this partnership is so important, one, for the high quality experience that the students are having and having to meet that standard. But also, as we think about our democracy, it's these kind of skills for advocacy and taking a document that's 200 years old and applying it to our modern day. That's what good citizens do, and that's what these students showcase in the speech competition. So congratulations to them, and thank you to our American Legion.
No, congratulations. That's incredible. Really good job.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely. Very resonant and important topics right now,
Yes.
definitely. Gives me
Yeah.
a little hope that you're thinking of this.
Yeah, can you repeat your speeches?
And they're actually all off to their AP US history
Yes.
review, so thank you.
Yes.
as well.
Of
course.
Yes.
Which they have
Thank you
this
all.
week, so thank you.
I think you'll do
Thank you.
great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have our leadership report. I'd hand it over to Assistant Superintendent Lynch for our curriculum management plan presentation.
Thank you. Good evening. Inside of your packets for this evening, I shared with you some slides, which are a general summary, and also a formal document, which is a lot of words and a couple graphics. So my purpose tonight is to talk a little bit about the why of a curriculum management plan and to share it with you. So a curriculum management plan is a multi-year plan to review and update our curriculum. We have the benefit to be in a district where there's a large and firm commitment to having a strong curriculum and the resources to back it up, as well as the teachers to implement it, which we know are very critical. So this plan just provides an overview of a timeline, provides a roadmap, and also formalizes the process for collecting teacher input and student input. Our curriculum management plan also, it's broken into 4 phases. So in the lower right-hand corner, these are the 4 critical phases of the curriculum management plan. It's continuous and ongoing. So we review a curriculum, we make recommendations about how to improve it. We then implement the recommended program or improvements. And then in the last years, we're always monitoring and refining that curriculum. So the document both has the timeline as well as a general philosophy, which I think is really important, and that's an engaging and aligned curriculum is an essential component of successful teaching and learning, and that's really paired with instructional practices and pedagogy that are also at the center. So there's a little bit at the beginning of the document just about the philosophy, and then it gets into more detail about the 4 phases. When we started at the beginning of this school year, just taking my own start at Scituate Public Schools, in August, I learned that we were implementing a new math program, 6 through 12. And when I worked with the social studies and ELA departments, we were in discussions about which department would be reviewing their curriculum. So really from the beginning, and with Superintendent Burkhead and our department chairs, I think the need emerged to develop a pathway for which department and programs would be up when. So that was a little bit about what this document will help us do. And also to recover a little bit from sort of the strains during the 2000s with remote learning and the need to implement sort of like a math program at the elementary level, and then in a different year do a math program at the secondary level. So we would hope this roadmap sort of brings back into alignment PK through 12 programs, so we're doing all of the pieces at the same time. Really important components of our curriculum management plan are how students are doing. That's the heart of the enterprise, is teaching and learning. Equity among departments. So sometimes we just know that with national and state metrics, some departments appear to be under more pressure than others, but we know from our student experiences that all of the classes and programming that they participate in is important. So another value at the center is equity, and also just recognizing staff capacity. So for example, PK through grade 4, all of our teachers teach everything. So we have to remember that we really can't implement and review and recommend in multiple departments at the same time, because our teachers' most important job is to teach and work with our students. And so we said I had to break it out that way. Before I get into like a case study example of it, I want to say that this is the work of our curriculum coordinators and department chairs, along with myself, our central office team, and our principal team, to really think about how to share this with staff and to make this map. So that was the process that we followed. We know that over time, especially if you make a plan out to 2031, that you're going to have to look at it every year and make adjustments. So we know that we want to do that every year with our team, but you have to start somewhere with the plan. So that's sort of where we're starting. So inside of the document, it goes out through 2031, but I thought the easiest way to talk about this and then allow for questions is just let's choose a department and then see what it would feel like to go through the curriculum management process. So if you look at the upper left-hand corner, English, Language Arts, and Literacy 6 through 12 is the department that's in the review phase. So there's 3 phases of, outside of like the monitor and review, there's 3 key phases of the curriculum management cycle, and the first phase is the review phase. So the question would be, well, what happens during a review phase? So I sort of put the spotlight on what does the review phase look like for ELA 6 through 12. The document that you have uses words to explain it, which I think is important if somebody wants to take a deep dive, but for our purposes this evening, during the review phase, the departments that are on the grid for the review phase would form a review committee. So the review committee is comprised of the department chair or curriculum coordinator, teachers, principal, parents, school council parents tend to be very good ones to have participating because they're really familiar with our school. And then you take a close look at your curriculum and you think about where are the strengths and where are the needs in that curriculum area. The curriculum management plan really allows for a whole year of this analysis. So right now we're partnering with an organization that specializes in curriculum review. They're called Pill for Literacy. And they're collecting input from our teachers and educators and our principals about how our the strengths and the needs within our ELA curriculum. We'll also be looking to reach at assessment data like MCAS, benchmark data, student outcome data, and by the end of the year, they produce a document which is called our strengths and needs assessment, which captures areas where we're doing well and areas where our program needs to be improved. So for ELA this year in 24-25, by the end of the school year, they will have a formal document that's referred to as the strengths and needs assessment that will capture what's working well and where improvements are needed. And the one piece I would just highlight in this is that Hill is great at, they've worked with Scituate before for many years with our elementary staff, but also secondary. They both survey teachers in the department and also convene teacher focus groups about what teachers feel like they need in terms of professional development and programming and where things are going well. So I just highlight that as a really important part of the review process to make sure that we're collecting information from the people closest to teaching and learning. Would you like me to go through each phase, or would you like to ask questions as we go? Okay. Feel free to ask a question at the end. So the second phase is the the recommend and development phase. So when we get to the fall of this year, the English department 6 through 12 slides over to the middle phase, which is the recommend and develop phase. So at this point, they have the needs assessment, and then they begin thinking about what are the programs and curriculum work that would need to be done related to the needs assessment. Another easy term for this would be the pilot phase. So this is when they're thinking about texts and programs that could be piloted during the recommend and develop phase. They collect staff and student feedback and then make a recommendation about programs, texts, and professional development that would be implemented. So a good parallel for this is the social studies department over the course of this year was following this process, and Sam Lesniak did a good job sharing out what was in process, the communication from the social studies department to families, and now is at a point where the staff and student feedback is collected and analyzed, and the social studies department is making a recommendation based on all that work that was done this year. So the English department, 6 through 12, will do this in 25-26, and the social studies department is concluding this phase right now.
So when they make a recommendation, who is that recommendation made to? Is it central office team, or department chairs are part of the review? So what's the next sort of step after that?
Yeah, so really the whole department is making the recommendation forward that this is the program or materials that we're going to move forward with, and it's recommended for purchase.
Okay.
So it is recommended, to central office.
Yeah.
I would, in my role and Tom's role as well, and Superintendent Burkhead and all other members of the team would be part of that process.
So can you connect the dots for me? So in the review phase, you're collecting, the Hill for Literacy is collecting feedback from department chairs and teachers. And then in this phase, you're collecting data from students. So can you help me understand, so is it the needs assessment highlights the strengths and opportunities, and then you're collecting feedback from students on those things that were highlighted, or I'm not seeing the connection there.
So to use I know I've given you the case study for ELA, but for social studies purposes, a needs assessment phase would involve perhaps if there's older textbooks or materials, like they might identify, well, a real deficit of our program right now is it doesn't take into consideration original documents or multiple perspectives on like historic events. That would be part of the strength and needs assessment, and then that would feed into the recommend and develop phase where there are known, I'm just using shortcomings, but like there are known shortcomings with the current program in social studies, just making this up, and then in the recommend phase, the text that would be piloted would address what would be considered to be those shortcomings. And so when we collect feedback from the teachers that are trying multiple books that could meet our needs, I think we would want to make sure that those materials are addressing things that we know are strong in the areas where we need to get stronger. So I think that's how we would use the student feedback, is to make sure that it's just not teacher perception, but that the students have a voice in it too, because they use the materials.
So I guess that's what I'm wondering about. I'm sorry I'm getting in the weeds, so I just really want to understand. So I'm wondering where the student feedback is in the review process, because what about sort of the unknown unknowns, right? So like the teachers have a lens, and I'm just wondering, in the case where potentially a teacher's experience does not match the student's experience, how are we picking that up so that there can be a recommendation that addresses or at least explores that sort of gap between what the teacher's perception is and what the student perception is, I guess, is what I'm wondering. And I know Sam's here, I don't know if she has it.
But I have a kind of a piggyback on that, but from the parent lens of like,
Or even
especially
the
your
parent.
6th grade, 7th grade, like what my kids think that the social studies or any program needs is maybe different from what I might
Yeah.
think would be useful. So is the parent feedback gathered through direct contact with parents beyond school council, or, you know, through teacher feedback that they've heard from parents? Like, is there a clear channel there? I think that's an important group to capture more broadly, experientially,
So just
parents.
your parent feedback?
Yeah. Particularly
I
the
think
like
it's
younger grades.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it's just there's a teacher, school perception and a family student perception. Often they are aligned. And
Yeah.
sometimes they're not, whether it's the teacher's perception or the family student perception. I just want to make sure that, you know, we're capturing those misalignments. And it may be that the family student thinks something and it actually can be reconciled before it hits recommendation, but even just to acknowledge, that's all I'm wondering about.
Yeah, I think that's a helpful recommendation, just getting a sense of the perception of caregivers. I would point back to in the first phase, this isn't the answer to the question, it's just an acknowledgement of what needs to be looked at. So with the assessment data and student outcomes,
Yeah.
I think we should have a lot of information about how students are performing,
Yeah.
both from our benchmarks and standardized tests where they're available, course grades. And then teachers also, and students and buildings also have the pressure, I think, of alignment to standards. And so that's another, I just think, leg on the stool. So that's an important part of like assessment data, student outcomes, you know, teachers and building leaders are right there. I think we can think about ways to include student experiences. We definitely did it in this phase. And I know that Lesniak used some student surveys and teacher surveys when students piloted things. So I think we can continue to think about ways to collect that information from families.
Yeah, I think you could lessen the burden of the sort of moment and have it be, you know, I'm thinking about the math curriculum, like that was implemented. So is there an opportunity there to have an occasional check-in with families about how it's going? And then you can, along with that assessment data that you have for students, you could have that as part of the, right? Because I feel like that data you have will tell the what, but it may not tell the why and the story of the how,
Sure.
right? So just having that to triangulate might be helpful.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, but this has to do with like new curriculum, not necessarily curriculum that's already in play.
Well, it's a review, so it's reviewing the
Part of it's
current.
review, but I'm getting the sense that like what this presentation, it's like what Sam presented on. So that was like looking at new materials, getting the feedback from the students and the teachers, and then choosing a textbook. Then you implement it, and then you get feedback from parents.
I think Carrie's advocating for parent and family and student feedback in the part of the cycle when they're looking back at what we have and trying to understand
Oh, yeah,
what's
yeah,
not
yeah.
going well.
So
It
prior
already
to,
exists in
yeah.
the recommend phase.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think what Carrie's advocating for is there a way to
Review.
include it
yes,
also in
that's
that
all I'm saying.
first
And I don't wanna
phase.
make it burdensome, I just need just to have a little bit of
Yeah.
data points
Right.
on that, I think.
Sure.
Would be useful.
I have one more question before you go forward. I know this is your example for the case study, ELA 6 to 12. Are we also implementing this in a K to 5 curriculum too, or is it just for the secondary?
So right now in 25, 26, with our eye toward like teacher and staff capacity, we're looking at science, PK5 at the same time. So we're not looking at elementary ELA, but farther down on the grid, we'll see that ELA comes back together again
Right.
to one PK12.
Okay.
So we would love to, but
Yeah.
people,
We did
I
it
mean-
relatively recently too, didn't we, ELA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So we try to, part of the goal was to try to bring things into alignment in a way that can follow the process and not overwhelm teachers and give them the time that they need.
We also don't wanna do it too often, cause
Right.
like they need a minute to
Yeah.
learn it before they can
Yeah.
Right.
teach it well. We don't want to be like overwhelming people
Yeah,
with
totally.
too much curriculum to do. But I think
I guess my thought behind that was like, what if what's identified was something foundational that really was before sixth grade?
That's a good question. I think we're excited about reviewing curriculum areas with a PK-12 perspective, and I think this plan gets us on the track. And I agree, it would be really exciting to look at something in a holistic perspective. So we have a plan to get there in a way that gets us on the highway without breaking apart from like staff capacity and financial capacity. So
Yeah.
that's a really good question. We all agree that the PK through 12 perspective is really what's needed.
No, totally appreciate it. Yes.
Yeah.
Capacity, time, respecting everybody's, the other things they have to do all day long. But yeah, it'll be great long-term to see how it all sort of comes together.
and budget-wise, this essentially means there's always something in the
Right,
budget, right? This is like a pretty big investment all the time, which is good and fine, and I'd rather have it spread out than, coming in us together, but, there's that aspect too to think about.
And I just want to follow, if I could follow up on that. Because that was a question that came up over the last couple of years was, this is a lot of money. What's the why behind you spending it on people? I think at least some people in the community just felt, oh, it's good. Nobody disagreed with it, but the assumption was it was just textbooks. And then it wasn't, and Sam started and the rest of the department chairs, and when Ryan came on board and started explaining specifically, no, it's much more than that. So then we got that process done. And now the questions were coming up, how's the elementary curriculum doing that we implemented a couple of years ago? And we really didn't have a plan for that, at least specifically like this. So I think they've done a great job to pull both those plans together. Now we can articulate why we spend our money, specifically on what, and then the homework that's been done to validate it, and then the follow-up on, okay, is it working and why not, and fixing it, to answer all these questions, so.
Definitely.
Yeah, and that's really helpful supplemental information, and we used ELA and just to sort of like the line between the philosophy of it and what's practically happening on the ground. I think we're talking about ELA right now because of where it is on the grid, but then I think Sam and I have had this conversation that social studies really went through a lot of this, 6 through 12 went through a lot of this process, but in more of a condensed format. So I just want to acknowledge that while this plan may not have been on paper in September, a lot of these practices, these best practices are things that our department chairs and curriculum coordinators use. We're just really documenting them and then creating a schedule. So I just want to say that I think that just because this is a public perspective, that a lot of these things do happen, and we just want to try to spread it out so it can happen in a predictable way. So when it comes to the implement phase, so like math was implemented 6 through 12 this year, and social studies will be implementing 25, 26, and then ELA 26, 27, we would expect to see that the recommended programs and texts will be implemented, shared with students, that our staff would be participating in PD related to programs or texts that have been selected, that our curriculum is developed and updated. So with a new program, it's not always that, oh, this is just our curriculum, that teachers do look at a program or a text and adapt it and create curriculum. That's what they became teachers to do, and they can do, and they're good at it. And also that whatever we implement isn't going to be perfect. So like implementing anything, construction project at your house, it's only good to the extent that you say, this isn't quite how I want it to be. I think it still needs to get better in this area. And so we acknowledge that supplemental programs may be needed, continued professional development, and looking at our assessment data to make sure, is this working like we wanted it to work? So we commit to doing that in the implementation phase. And I think I just explained the last one, just looking at student outcomes, like are we getting, how are we doing with it? And just really trying to stay on top of that. So just to go back to our example of, so Janice, you brought up that like this is for best practices for implementing a new program. Absolutely. You know, like this is a really good plan. The best time to plant a tree was 25 years ago. If you want a tree, the second best time to plant it is today. So when we think about the implementation for math teachers and math specialists also deserve the same benefits in the process. So we're also thinking about in what ways are we assessing our implementation there? Is anything supplemental needed? What professional development do our teachers want and need related to our implementation? So there was a lot of work done to get a new program implemented, and just because they're on the right side of the grid, the math department in 6 through 12 in this year, they're also just like every other department entitled to, you know, trying to get the benefits of this process. So we're just committed to that with all of our departments. Social studies is implementing this coming fall. And I know math is 1 year behind, but they're also they'll be in that monitor and refine phase where we're listening for what, you know, teachers need, continued professional development, things like that. So the monitor and refine is the final phase of the process where we're getting ready for the next review, but we're also making sure that what was implemented is working for teachers and students. So it's just a case study of one department moving through the grid, and you can see that it always goes review, recommend, develop, implement, and then as you know, like ELA and science maybe fall off, or social studies, like they fall off the grid. Notice that those years they're not on it. They're refining and monitoring how the curriculum is working. So that's just a little bit of a specific case study or overview for what it might look like in single departments. Finally, the next step slide would just be, what do we have to do with the implementation of this plan? Support the content areas that are on the grid, especially our first time through the process. We have to maintain our focus on student outcomes and staff support. For example, the English department and science K-5 PK through 5 will start a review committee. So we need to identify best practices related to review committees, who's on them, collecting, like you have mentioned, maybe some parent input. At the end of a review, there should be a written document that the department chair or curriculum coordinator would produce. We should sort of publish that and share that to say, like, these are our strengths and needs, and these are areas that we want to work on. So a best practice would be to say, what does a really good version of this look like based on our team? We need to make sure that we're aligned with district budget planning. There will be tough times there'll be strong years and there'll be years that are a little bit leaner. So we need to deal with those realities. I would also say that when your science licenses are up or your social studies texts are woefully out of date, it needs to be addressed, and we'll just have to make a plan for addressing it. Like, kids will, even in tough budget years, students will always need access to like science or math licenses, and so we'll just have to have hard discussions like we would with anything, how to make sure students and teachers have what they need. We need to adjust our structures to dedicate time to the curriculum management process. So like right now with our meeting structures, I see an opportunity for more meetings PK through 12. Sometimes we break up elementary, secondary. Our curriculum work, I think, needs to be a little more collaborative. So vertically aligned, we have some ideas about how to make that happen. And also share out the really good work happening here. This would be the last thing, would just be to really enhance our website to showcase this plan, to have documents on there like our needs assessments, the review cycle, so our community can know that we have a plan and we update it year to year. But our group has researched some places that, you know, in our state that have really strong examples of this, and other districts that really don't speak to it. And I think we have a good opportunity with our, you know, strong teachers and leaders to showcase the really good work that happens here. So I think another next step is just enhancing our website to just showcase this work and to show our plan. So That's just a summary of our proposed curriculum management plan. And I really, again, I appreciate the work of the curriculum coordinators and department chairs and the principals and our central office team to work with me on this. And it's being shared with teachers. It was emailed to them so they could see it before this meeting, but also it's going to be discussed at the elementary faculty meetings this month, and also our department chairs are sharing it at the secondary level. So that's a little bit about what it looks like from the rollout perspective.
Nice have it. What to use this as I think, Ryan, this is great. I appreciate the fact that some of this was maybe happening before, but now at least it's documented. My question and comments are probably around the assessment process and student outcomes. I think ultimately, anything that we do in the schools, we're looking for the most positive student outcomes. And my question is, what are we really relying on determining student outcomes? Is it just the grades that they're earning in their classroom, or is it on, on the MCAS subjects, or how are we measuring that? Because I feel like that's an important piece. If we're just measuring it on student grades, most of our students are doing really well. But we know that grades aren't always a measure of what their outcomes really are, I guess what their knowledge really is. So I'd be interested kind of what we're basing that information on and what those outcomes and assessment data is really collecting. So I think ultimately that's why we are implementing or reviewing curriculum, to see if we're creating the desired outcomes. And I'll also go on to say it's not just outcomes, I think it's student and to some degree parent and family experience through that process. Especially at the younger grades, family is probably more involved, I would think. But I am interested in the assessment data and what we're determining, how we can determine if this curriculum or whatever is happening is successful, and how long that takes to determine.
Yeah, that's a good question, and there are a couple of parallel processes that aren't really mentioned in here that I think speak to that a little bit. One of them is our mid-year data review, where every department in February brought forward their existing benchmarks, how students are making progress towards the standards in their department. So I would think that by doing that on a yearly basis, we would have better data about how students are performing in all content areas. We would use MCAS as well. And I think also our MTSS process should give us better data about that. So by the end of this year, we'll have our student analytics platform in I don't want to call it a draft format, but it'll be operational. And I think we need to answer that question about what's the best data to use in each of our content areas. So that's a little bit about what we would plan on using, but I think that it should be firmed up over time to say these are the best measurements of how students are doing, while also collecting qualitative feedback, like you mentioned, from parents, students, things like that.
Yeah, I also think, to Peter's point, I think we need to be mindful that it isn't just success in courses. Is the material that they're being successful in these courses relevant to what's happening out in the world? So this notion that we needed to update our social studies text, right? So you could have a old social studies text, everybody's doing great, but the material they're learning is not expansive enough, right? It's not covering. So I think that's sort of composition of what they're learning is changing, I feel daily, right? So being able to stay up with that is critical as well. So that's why you have the expert teachers in the classroom letting us know, right?
Like U.S. history. U.S. history changing by the day.
Right, that's what I mean.
I don't remember the last time we updated our U.S. history.
Economics,
textbooks.
history,
Right,
all of
Probably,
those things.
I don't know,
This one out and then
2015 at best, maybe?
Yeah. I think this is.
That's true of anywhere.
Yeah, and I think this is a great presentation. What I'm hopeful for, and I know that this is, we need to be patient, and so I'm being patient. What I really love is I feel like you're highlighting what we know has already been existing in some way and instantiating, and also creating this culture of continuous improvement. Because what I'm also really interested in, and I'm gonna be patient and give you time to work this through, is we have this cyclical map now of curriculum management. What I'm also really interested in is what are the small circles that shorten the timeline between review and implementation. Because we know that sometimes when we implement a new curriculum, we can't anticipate what might go right or wrong. And so how do we speed up that time so they're not having to wait 3 years to make the change that we know is needed tomorrow, right? But again,
Yeah, and
so
sometimes that change isn't a new curriculum. It's like, what is the thing that we need that can sort of
Right.
close a gap or
and how are we empowering and giving
It's not
our
always-
staff space to have those conversations, and because they're progress monitoring, so they're looking at data, they're talking about this data, so like, you know, if there's a wrench somewhere in the system, how do we create those little circles that can feed into that bigger circle, right? But
This
it's
is where
gonna
the
take
wind
time
block
though.
data should come in too, though,
I'm
right?
sorry?
The wind block data,
Yes, exactly.
You know,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
like
yeah,
our
for sure.
mechanism for capturing stuff
Right.
out.
For sure. I just don't want our staff, and I'm not on the ground, so I'm making assumptions, but I don't want our staff to feel locked in, that they can have that freedom to make changes because they have an expertise, right? They see what they see on the floor, so. But I think this is I love the move you're making with this and the team, so.
I just had one question about the Hill literacy. I looked into them a little bit. I was curious if you know of other groups that are similar and would provide some similar services for the other subject areas, and if this is something we've invested in the past.
Sure. So the first question was, do we know of other people that provide similar services? So
Yeah.
that's a common question when people are in the review process. Districts ask around. We did interview 2 other groups to see who would be the best fit for us, and so that's how we ended up with Hill. But there are other people we've connected with. One of them, Bill and I saw at an MASS presentation. I would have confidence that they would be able to review a couple of content areas, but there are some very good providers out there. For mathematics, we have somebody who's going to help us look at our implementation and see where we're at now. That person's going to do some work with us. We're very excited to have a partner in that content area. So I feel like we're developing just just a team of people who can help. And I think that's going to be an exciting challenge. In some department areas, people are going to need capacity help, but in other ones, somebody might say, you know, for wellness in my department, I really feel like I want to lead this part of it, but we have a partner here for the business piece. So I think that's going to be an exciting part because I have a lot of confidence in our curriculum coordinators and department chairs, but sometimes it just comes down to like capacity, like convening the focus groups, writing the report. A little bit, you pay for the capacity.
Exactly.
So there's like,
just bring in the people who know how to do this as opposed to us
That's what
working.
they do.
yeah. And so there's some,
It's hard.
I've pleasantly, there's just some strong people out there, and we ask around. It's always the assistant superintendents are always asking about someone's experience with somebody else. So I feel like, there's a good group of people out there to help us and share best practices.
I love the culture building, we're always working on everything and improving, nobody's perfect, these are, that's true of all of us, and this is a really good process. And it's that missing piece of the puzzle that we've been, we're excited to have.
It is, and I think I just want to, they're all interconnected now too, like, for example, professional development, we talked about that.
It's great.
That's been up there a lot, so the whole PD committee, now this adds some structure to that, like, okay, now we have purpose that we had to do math this year, and so when I and the team, we get ready for each year in professional development, this is more stronger guidance here than it was before.
Right, totally, absolutely. I have a side comment, just not even about this at all, but it's been in my mind a little bit. As we move forward with MCAS data, and this comes from having 4 kids taking MCAS this year and 3 different levels, I don't know what the internal discussions are for everyone, teachers and staff, but very, very cautiously looking at what that says about our students, and they know that their perception of what that assessment is definitely shifted because their little ears know different things now, and I do not just this is my personal example from my own house. Like, I don't see, even no matter how much I try to hammer the importance of it and what it can do for you and how it's a great tool, something, yeah, there's just, I think even at the student level, and I don't have like specific data, just again, anecdotally in my own house, that this sort of seriousness on it, and obviously it's less so the younger we go down the line here, but I don't know that it will be, we shall see, but I'm worried that it's not gonna be a true valid assessment for us anymore, like, I'm not just Scituate, but like everywhere.
Yeah, I think initially that may be true with the older kids, like, it's
Yeah,
10th grade, we'll see.
right,
But it's all culturally too, it's what you measure what you value, so if we're preaching it, our teachers are preaching it, this is important, but it's one point in time, like we've always said.
yeah,
Like, it's not the end all be all, it's one more data point that we use, it's important. I think we can get a lot from it still, and I think, that might take some time. But if we do a good job with the younger kids through middle school, then
yeah, that's true.
even in 10th grade, they'll get used to that, it's not a graduation requirement
Yeah.
anymore, but that's an important part of helping them, especially with the MTSS process, where we're looking at multiple data points. Behavioral, that's just one more point in time that will help us identify the whole child.
Yeah.
So that might take a little time, for sure.
Yeah, and I would
Really
add,
get it
sorry,
going
go ahead.
forward, not to embed it in with other data. I almost want to see it like, here's MCAS and here's like the rest of the
We'll
story.
be able to do that, sure.
I don't know that, yeah, like you said, maybe over time, but sorry, Mike.
No, it just connects to it. With our benchmark process, especially the elementary schools with Star Reading and Star Math, the students do their benchmark in September. The data's ready in 2 weeks to share back to teachers at data
Yeah,
meetings.
that seems
They're much
more-
more, teachers I think are more tuned into
Absolutely.
that real-time live data than waiting. Students are
Right.
taking it now, we'll get it in August or September, the students will have moved on, and I think there's much fresher.
Yeah.
It's important, it means something, we talked about with accountability, but I think the other assessments that get used 3 times a year and come back much quicker, I think people are very tuned into that, because that's the kids in front of them. So I think in our classrooms, our teachers see that too.
Yeah. But I think that's a good testament to all the work that all the teams have done here, because those assessments are pretty solid now. We're not scrambling to say, oh, the MCAS is what it is. What do we do now? We already have systems in place, so that's really, it's good to know. All right, sorry. I just had to get that out. Just watch out for those dedicators. All right. That was it? That was our final? Okay. All right. We're going to have a presentation now from Jackie Frangello, our Director of Educational Technology and Team. Oh, yeah. Under heating.
Maybe, yeah, but you can see yeah. They're one of the DR.
But we got to go out together, so it's just we'll shut it off.
Yeah.
C zones.
Well, that's always.
So-
Beat off. It's like, is it because it's like an outshoot of just, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
She exists. All I see is emails from you.
Especially lately.
Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
I know.
You've been very busy.
She's great and powerful as you
Yes.
are.
Maria and I were.
Remember, we're on the all SPS distribution list. We get all the emails.
Yeah, all the email, the slow.
We know, yeah, we know about the slow.
Yeah.
Very busy.
Okay, well, thank you for having me tonight. Jackie Frangello, Director of Educational Technology. For those of you that don't see me as much, at least I've had the pleasure of working with Maria and Janice this year on updating tech policies. So, but thank you for having me and being able to
So, like right arrow, I think, advances or down. Sorry, it's like there you go.
We're gonna talk tonight about technology, talk a little bit about the team, what we've been up to, what we're doing well, what we're doing now, what we're looking to do, plans for next year and going forward. So like I said, I'm Jackie Frangella, Director of Educational Technology here in Scituate. There are 4 of us total in the tech department. We have Chris Kuhn, who couldn't be here tonight, but he is our IT operations coordinator. Chris helps manage everything tech, as we all do, but he strictly focuses on the network, the infrastructure, devices, management, setting up accounts, all of our organizational groups, and troubleshooting when we have slow internet or we've gone down. So Chris is a huge part of the team. Him and I work together all day long, making sure that we are fully functioning, operating, and working smoothly for everyone. Then we have Tara Gaudet. Tara is here tonight. Tara is our tech integration specialist for grades 6 through 12. And she focuses mainly on supporting staff and students on integrating technology in the classroom. And that could range from working or collaborating with teachers on projects, assignments, using different technology tools, techniques in the classroom with the students, along with Tara hops in and helps with all other things tech as well. Then we also have Sue Egan, who's also here as well. Sue is our technology paraprofessional, and Sue is hands-on, boots on the ground, giving whatever tech support she can across the district. She also helps us manage all of our 4 elementary schools as well. So she's a constant in our elementaries, rotating through, supporting the teachers there. So this is our team that every single day across the district, the 4 of us are supporting our 6 schools, our 400 plus staff members, and our 2,800 students and families. So what have we been up to? We've been up to a lot. So recently, we successfully onboarded 2 new technology team members. So Tara Gaudet and Chris Kuhn are both new to our team. Tara worked at the elementary level last year as our technology teacher, and this year transitioned into the tech integration specialist position. So it's been great for Tara to be able to see the elementary side, and now she's flowing up to the secondary and getting to know the staff, the students, and focusing on the tech integration piece where I left off. Chris is brand new to the district. He came to us from Bridgewater Public Schools. He has about 10 plus years experience in education on top of in the private sector as well. So he comes to us with a ton of experience. So onboarding Tara and Chris has been an unbelievable move for the tech department. Their organization, their experience has just really helped us kind of continue moving at the pace that we have over the past few years and keeping our level of service to our staff and our students across the district just kind of keep going pretty seamlessly. So we've been very lucky to have them both join us. I've also been working with Julie Ward on trying to apply for various technology grants to bring some money back into the program. With the support of the town, we're able to secure a $10,000 Maya grant, which then went back into helping us support our cybersecurity goal of trying to strengthen our cybersecurity across our network, which was great. We were very grateful to the town for supporting us in that receiving of the grant. We have also received a grant to continue our cybersecurity training with our staff across the district. So we were awarded a grant through the state to use the Know Before cybersecurity training. It was no cost to us, but the cybersecurity training platforms do actually cost money. And we were very lucky to be able to secure this grant that there isn't any money coming out of our pocket, but yet we are able to provide our staff the ability to help us work on strengthening our cybersecurity across the district and educating them on what that looks like from their perspective as a user every day on our network. And then we also worked with the policy subcommittee on updating our district tech policies and getting those updated to align with the technology that we are currently using in the classroom every single day. So that was a huge undertaking, but it was so well worth it. We also had a group of teachers from across the district as well that helped us: Colleen Simpson, Tracy Newman, Tara Gaudette, Sue Egan, Helen Murphy, Amy Kidder. So we had a really strong group that was able to help us accomplish that. We have also been focusing on trying to look at the areas where we can definitely strengthen our security and our network. With the help of the Maya grant, we were able to implement our Sophos MDR, which is a managed detection and response platform, which gives us 24/7 surveillance on our system, and it's kind of detecting if there is anyone trying to breach our system. So that was huge for us to be able to bring on that service, especially with a small team. We don't have anyone that's sitting and watching our network all hours of the day. And as we know, our most vulnerable times are when we're not here. So it's very secure to know that we do have something in place for when we're not here. We have also just finished, I think today, we had to update all of our devices up to Windows 11 in Office 2024. It was a hands-on project, but we were able to get our hands on about 400 plus laptops over the past month or two, get everybody upgraded to where they're receiving all the proper security patches, and that we're good to go when Windows 10 phases out and Windows 11 takes full effect. A couple of other things that we are wrapping up, that projects that have sort of spilled over from the summer, but they're very large projects. They're not as glamorous on the forefront, but in the back end, very glamorous for us and exciting. But we are wrapping up our switch project, where we did install about 30 new switches across 5 schools. We're able to increase our fiber into our network up to a 10 gig to kind of increase our speed. We also just recently upgraded our access point controller and 197 of our access points across the district to make sure that those are properly working and we can manage them and manage our Wi-Fi across the district. So what we're doing well, I would say for a small team, but a very mighty one, I would say our support is probably our best attribute. We are here every day. We are making sure that our staff and our students are always fully supported. We receive a lot of requests every single day. On top of the normal day-to-day operations, we never have the same day twice, I can tell you that. Some things may occur twice or back to back, but our days are never the same. From the beginning of the school year up until about, I would say, a couple of days ago, we have managed to receive about 2,638 tech support requests, which are our tech tickets. So basically that is staff and students from across the district putting in a tech ticket for some sort of tech support that they need, whether it's accounts, passwords, broken devices, access, support in integrating technology, you name it, we get the request. And we have repaired about 728 devices to date as well since the beginning of the school year. So we've definitely been busy with our tech tickets, but making sure that we are, always there for the staff, the students, and getting back to them as quickly as possible. Part of our tech department, which a lot of people don't realize, is that we do also support all the schools with communication through the website. So the website and the district app that our families have downloaded onto their phones, we are helping schools manage the communication and the posts that they are pushing out to their families. So we have up to date, once again, supported schools with about 200 plus posts that we've created and published to the app for our families to stay up to date with what's going on around the schools, highlighting all the great things happening, academics, sports, events, you name it, we've put a post through. So the team, Tara and Sue, work very hard each day with the schools to make sure that all the communications go out, they're eye appealing, they're organized, all the information is right in there, it's easy to follow, links are working, so when our families do receive that communication, it's just very simple for them to follow. So it's a big part of the team's day-to-day as well. One of the other things that we've brought back and implemented this year is newsletters to our families and our staff. We try to start off with about 3 newsletters this year. I believe we've pushed out 2 so far, and then we'll have an end of the year one. Very well received. The staff love it. They're short, they're simple, they're quick, little tidbits of tech. Tara works really hard on trying to figure out what information is important and relevant for the staff at that time when they're receiving these newsletters, and it's a quick read for them, so it's not too time consuming, but also very beneficial for them. So what are we doing now? So right now we are preparing for the summer. So the summer is one of our busiest times. That's where we can really start to focus on a lot of the project and the big ticket items in the background that keep us going during the school year. So along with everything else right now, we are starting to prepare for those projects. So this summer, we will be focusing on our Wi-Fi network and kind of improving that coverage and performance, separating out our Wi-Fi so we have proper guest access, student and staff access. We up at the high school, we will be continuing with our projector upgrades. So the high school is next on the list. We've already done pretty much all of the elementaries. But this year we will continue with the high school. So the high school will be getting 13 interactive panels. They're called Blue Line panels. So they'll be replacing the old projectors. So they'll be getting 13 here. So we'll be managing the installation on those. We will be upgrading our district firewall. It is very mature and it's ready for retirement. So we're happy to send them off. So we will be working with our network partner, TechMD, on getting that up and going. We will be receiving in our big shipment of Chromebooks so we can continue with updating the Chromebooks, moving our one-to-one forward, assigning our 5th grade their one-to-one, and upgrading our 9th grade students. We'll be performing other projects across the district over the summer as well. We are going to continue to work on our back-end systems to make sure that they are secure on the back end and kind of tweaking our Active Directory and our Google Workspace. So we have a lot going on there. And then obviously we will be planning and preparing for the upcoming school year. Towards the end of the year and over the summer, we'll be rolling out a new tech ticketing system that also is an inventory system. We don't have a current real inventory system to kind of keep track of all of our devices. So we are actually extremely excited to actually have an inventory system that will help us really keep track of all of our laptops, access points, you name it. It helps us manage our technology inventory so we can see what is where, who has what. And then that also provides us a tech ticketing system as well, which our staff is used to. We have been piloting a streaming service with our secondary teachers. I think before the end of the school year, we will probably roll it out to the elementary as well. But we piloted with Swank, which is a streaming service which provides an expansive educational library of video materials and resources for teachers to use with their students. So instead of trying to find videos and clips from all over the internet or use personal streaming services, this platform has a very expansive library where staff members can go in, locate the resource, they can give students a shareable link, the students can watch it, they can pull clips from it. So it's provided a lot of equity and ease of sharing for these resources in the classroom. It's been very well received at the secondary level. Teachers are loving it. So we're doing our best today so we can be better for tomorrow and keep our technology as safe, reliable, and secure. So what we are looking to do as we're kind of going through this process. So, I'm new to this position, Chris is new to the district. One of the big things that we've also been doing across this school year is we've been auditing and analyzing our entire network infrastructure, our systems, our devices, management tools, subscriptions, you name it. We've been looking at it, we've been working with our vendors, having conversations with them, seeing how we're utilizing these tools, what services we get with them, and making sure that we have everything configured so we can really take advantage of these services that we have in place. So as we're doing this, we're hoping to then build some sort of refresh cycle or a sustainable technology plan where, very similar to how we're doing with curriculum, right? That we know where our systems are, what needs to be updated, what needs to be replaced, because technology, as we know, is changing by the second. So we have to make sure that we are, as up to date and, with our tools and everything, so we can make sure that we're always up and reliable and everything for our staff and our students. So that's where we are with what we're looking to do as we're going through the process here. So our plans for next year, pretty aggressive, but there's a lot to do. I'm hoping next year we can start developing an incident response plan. So very similar to how we did with the emergency operations plan. We should have a cybersecurity response plan in place in the event that, an attack or a threat or something does happen. These attacks and threats can happen at various levels, even if they're very minor, but it is good to have a plan in place so we know what to do and the steps that we should follow in those situations. So I'm hoping that we can get maybe a small group or committee together that can help us work on developing that. A cyber incident response plan is not just put together by a tech team, but yet, professionals from across the district, across various departments. So we're hoping that we can do that. We are going to continue with our cybersecurity. We just rolled out our 2025 to our staff. That will go from May to December. So we'll continue to support and work with the staff on having them work through the modules. We just had the Perry group work on our communications audit. They were a pleasure to work with. They were great, asked a lot of questions. They should have their report to us. We're looking forward to getting that and seeing what their recommendations are, where we can improve, what we can do to help strengthen our communication for next year. So based on what that report says, we will support that plan and make any necessary changes for next year. We are also focusing on digital safety and compliance. So with our tech policies being updated, that is a change for our staff because we're bringing them up to, current standards of what we're using for tech. So there is going to be some change for staff. So what we're doing is we are starting to work on some district resources that will support staff next year in the classroom. So to help them follow the policies and make sure that what they're doing with the digital tools and everything are safe and compliant for classroom use. So Tara has already started working on a district-approved digital tools list. We're kind of like in phase 1 of that, where we're working with the departments to identify what digital tools that they do use, because there are tools that they use that are outside of what the district already has in place. So we're trying to gather all that. And then we will have resources that will give them kind of like a one sheet or a quick reference on the technology policies. Google just implemented a lot of updates as well to their terms of use, so it's important for staff to know that. And then COPPA is updating their regulations in June, so we want to make sure that staff are aware of that as well. So we have a lot going on there where we will be working on a lot of resources to help continue to help support staff in the classroom. And then these are just my final thoughts that as we continue to build our strong systems and focus on security, efficiency, and student-centered learning, that we want to keep this momentum going and collaborate towards a future-ready Scituate. So we're just always in a great place, whether it's curriculum, tech, wherever we, want to be up there and provide the best service to our staff, students, and families.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? We've been busy.
Yeah.
No, I think it's great. I mean, I don't think we've ever heard from it. We don't really know everything that goes on behind the scenes. So this just sums up, I don't know, for me, 8 years of whatever was going on behind the scenes, which is now focused, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what it takes to run it. Just when I need it, I hope that I have internet access for it.
What these awesome people are for.
I know.
They're the
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
The only thing I would say is I know we've talked about this before, but it just seems so clear that we've seen this in other places too, that this is a role of tech and then there's the comms piece sort of like buried in there. And those are two different things, different skill sets, whole different beasts, you know? And so I know we've discussed this before in light of the budget and, we don't have $1 million that we could just bring in. But I do think this to me feels like a really clear area where in the future, when we would want to separate out those areas because technology and everything that was just described to us is a full job, at least, for these folks. And then the comms piece that we also know is really, really important is just there as well. And it's different. I imagine that the training for both of those things is really different. And so I don't know, want to underscore that again.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think there's also other branches that lead into tech in the classroom and things like that are sort of more curriculum based, not exactly what you all are focusing solely on, but I'm imagining you probably permeates because our committee, I think
The capacity we have.
capacity, capacity and budget, and we all see it. I know Bill and his team see it, so just what we need versus what we're able to carry now. Goals for that, and appreciate you coming in. And was like Peter said, nice to have you all come in, and we appreciate you because I think like you can't underscore there's so much, just hearing about other national, even like Bill has brought up certain just cyber attack type things that have happened to other districts, and it's really, never mind wiping out information, it wipes out budgets. It's so just unbelievably damaging. So the importance of what you all do is cannot be underscored enough. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And of course, if there's ever any questions.
We'll submit a tech ticket.
No,
I do not. I'm sure we can find it. You'll be like, why did I ever offer that? All right. Yes, Nicole and Maria, let's discuss, so, yes, we're gonna discuss a little bit about our adventures at the National School Board Association Conference down in the very warm and overcast but pleasant Atlanta, Georgia. Do you want me to present the slides?
Yeah,
or
do you want to do that for,
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Sure.
About that?
Yep,
Okay.
I'll pull it up, you
So
can start.
what I did is I pulled out some slides from what I thought were the two most interesting presentations that I attended, and kind of the two that I thought would be most maybe interesting for us to talk about. So the first one was called Boards, Superintendents, and the Power of Transformational Leadership. And it was from these folks from Oregon, and they talked a lot about all schools. So we have our charting the course here in Massachusetts. That every school board member is required to. Oh, I slipped into school board. Look at me.
I know, we did have to
Every school committee
adopt
member is required to take the 8-hour, training course. But in Oregon, they have something similar, but it's a little different in that I think it focuses more on board effectiveness, whereas ours is really like nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
Like the how-tos around the budget and things like that. So I just pulled out a couple of slides that I thought were kind of interesting. So this one that they shared about effective and ineffective boards, and they talked a lot about each of these bullet points, which I will not do, but I don't think this is anything unusual or new for us. I don't think we have anything to worry about. I don't think we're falling into the ineffective category, but I still thought it was kind of interesting. And then after this, they went into all of these different standards for board performance that I thought were really interesting and were kind of a deeper dive than some of the initial descriptors. And so it talks about, vision directed planning. So that would be like the goal setting that we've been doing, community engagement. I think that's something we do a lot. Effective leadership, accountability. Go on to the next slide, using data for continuous improvement. These, I think, again, are nothing that's like super new to us, but I did think it was neat to see it laid out like this, because I don't think that we really here in Massachusetts get exposed to this type of academic research. And then the next slide continues with, I liked that innovation and creativity was on there, because I think that is part of this job sometimes. But what I thought was really interesting, slide 7, is their theory of action, which was that board behaviors and characteristics can affect the superintendent's capacity for transformational leadership, which therefore affects this idea of collective teacher efficacy, which is the kind of sense that teachers have about the degree to which they can control students' achievement. And so a group of teachers that has high collective teacher efficacy believes that they are making a difference, that they can make a difference, they have the tools at their disposal to make a difference. And when that is high, it has really strong effects on student achievement, which is on the next slide. In research, it's really hard to find factors that affect student achievement for a number of reasons. But this is one that has a really large effect size. And so it's one that really matters. And I thought it was neat that this presentation kind of does draw the line between boards to superintendents to student achievement through this metric. So I did buy the book that they shared, and I have not made it very far, but I am really interested in this, and I'll pass this down if anyone wants to look at it, but the parts that I marked off are kind of this one chart that shows, kind of how knowledge, skills, and beliefs of board members therefore influence the policies, priorities, decisions, and actions that we take, which therefore influences the culture and the conditions within the district, the conditions for learning, which therefore influences the classroom instruction, students' engagement, and therefore student learning outcomes. And it gets really more specific into kind of other ways that boards kind of influence that. So I think I don't know, to me that concept is not super revolutionary, but it's also, we feel very far from students sometimes. And so it was just kind of a neat idea to think about what are some ways that we might tweak the way that we work to make sure that we're always keeping that idea in mind, that our beliefs and attitudes are, behind those policies, behind the decisions we make, the budget, all that stuff that do set those conditions system-wide, that can be sometimes hard to, an individual school can't accomplish that same sort of systems level change that we can sort of accomplish. And so certainly our work is not more important than what's going on in any classrooms or schools, but it can be a nice complement to, and something that I think we should be thinking about. So that was that. Nicole didn't attend that session.
No.
I was furiously texting her during
We
it, though.
divided and conquered mostly
Saying,
because
"You
there
should
was
be in this
so
one."
much to take in. And I think that I was saying to Maria, like even that day, she's like, "How was yours?" I was like, "Oh, apparently not."
I do have this.
I say that about all of them
No,
No.
no, I did not say that
She
at
went-
all.
that one was really good.
It
I
was
think-
really good, and I do have
yeah.
the full slides, and I thought the transformational leadership part was really
Yeah.
interesting. And I do think that's something that Bill pursues, his own PD and things like that. But I think it's something for us to also keep in mind on how we're supporting Bill
Right.
in pursuit of that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's good.
And then the next set of slides that I pulled, I think this is more basic and more along the lines with what we learned in charting the course, but I thought it was interesting that they linked this to the idea of community trust and how when the community sees us doing our job, which is in the first column, and the superintendent doing their job in the second column, and the way that those two kind of meet in the middle, that it really does, build trust. And I think this is not new to any of us, but I thought the next slide then gives further examples of what we do versus what the superintendent does as the manager of the district. And I do think some of this, it's sort of interesting to reflect on sometimes and just make sure that we're, in our lane, doing the things that we're supposed to be doing and doing them well, making sure that Superintendent Burkhead has, the freedom to do his things, but also that the community understands the difference between our roles, and that, the two are working together to create that public trust.
Yeah,
And
I think
so-
this was a good slide that just
Yeah,
really
I just think it's a good,
outlines that.
and I like, you can sort of, I think the decides what versus the decides how, is a good kind of thing to think about. If we are requesting information, he's providing it, we're thinking about here are the issues, but he and his team are thinking about what are the recommendations for that, And then lastly, this one was really about how we are seen in the community, and that when we are seen as a citizen, we can act as a citizen. We're speaking for ourselves. That's our time. We can commiserate. We can respond with opinion. We can respond off the cuff and immediately. And that's like one hat that we might wear. But then we also wear this other hat where we're speaking as a board, and we're not responding quickly. We're responding via policy. We're directing, through a chain of command. We do our due diligence, and it's just a really different way of being.
It's hard.
And so I think, again, it was just sort of part of the conversation broadly about building trust in the community is recognizing that we all have these two roles, and that, there are times when we are wearing one hat or the other hat or both. So
Yep.
I thought those were kind of some interesting takeaways from my sessions.
Yes, agreed. I think that was your last slide.
Yeah.
The other piece, I think one of our takeaways was just the importance of advocacy. We were able to do some quality networking with our Massachusetts peers.
We were.
Which, as my third time attending this conference, this was like really good to do, I think, because I hadn't connected in that way before. But we met, so we're really, really lucky in Massachusetts that the incoming NSBA president is from Massachusetts now. So he is great, and honestly, was really praised for just what a great job he's done and has elevated into that very high leadership role. And the Massachusetts delegates from all the towns that were present were, it was interesting to hear their strengths, their towns and cities, and what they're working on, and goals and the challenges too that other of our colleagues are facing in Massachusetts. But then even, more broadly, we have that's my favorite part of the conference, is almost like the side conversation that can happen when you're outside of session, just to hear, what's happening in New York and what they're going through, and the different types of boards and the sizes. And, it's so diverse, but also we there were such really strong common threads, I think, just among every single state that came through pretty loud and clear, I think. So good connections, and doing more advocacy as a board, even on a state level, was something that both of us took away as something we should talk more about and maybe think about what that could look like for us. I think we're lucky in Scituate that we are well resourced, so maybe we have, you know, some opportunity that some of the districts that might be struggling more don't necessarily have. So just something for us to think about down the line. And I will end with, our presentation was a slam dunk. We nailed it. I thought it went really well. It was fun.
It was, yeah. It was fun.
We had a really well attended session, great questions, good feedback. Yeah, it's good.
To Nicole's point about the advocacy, so there are two national teachers unions. One of them is the NEA, and that one was a heavy co-sponsor of the event, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that's why I'm sharing this, that they were very present at the event, but they did share, they published a lot of like very short little policy briefs and things like that are actually pretty good. I've been reading some of them. I mean, I clearly have a point of view there, a teachers union.
Yeah.
But I do think when it comes to finding kind of like topics that are, you know, current, they have a large staff devoted to, you know, researching current issues and kind of putting stuff out there. And so a lot of their stuff is very good and current, you know, as well.
The special education piece is really strong.
SPED stuff is very strong. They've got stuff on AI that I thought was good. Just, you know, they're just really devoted to that. So I thought that was just kind of something to know about when it comes to some of the advocacy work if you're trying to learn about issues.
I do get that they're easy to connect with too. Like, we could email them pretty easily and get.
I think so.
Get feedback. Great. Thank you for letting us share. The second piece to that sort of connects back to an update sort of related to our own school committee goals and what that's looking like. We kind of had talked about during our goal setting time in the fall that we would like to have a review, and we're sort of trying to also be in the same sort of mindset and have that culture on our board that we're advocating for and supporting in the district with reviewing things and making changes and acknowledging strengths, weaknesses, and challenges and things we thought might go one way that turned out another, and that's okay. Well, how do we pivot? What do we need? You know, do we need more? Do we want to change? Do we stay the course? All of that. So sort of just opening up a discussion here for our goals. I know Marie and Carrie have worked hard on the data subcommittee piece, so don't know if one of you wants to open up conversation on that and sort of give us a status update.
Yeah, so I can start with just reminding us of a goal that we set. Yeah. So we said that this year we would work to increase our K-12 data literacy around student achievement growth and strengthen our ability to ask useful questions and produce conclusions that will support the district in its pursuit of improved student achievement. And we said that our benchmarks would be to initiate a data subcommittee by January that would further articulate and define its charge by March. And then we said by June, the data subcommittee would provide a minimum of 2 brief trainings or resources to the larger group to support improved K-12 data literacy. That's what we said we would do. And then in the packet was a little 1-page update that came right from the meetings that Carrie and I have had. So do you want to talk first about the kind of our charge at the beginning?
I don't have it in front of me if you want to.
I can do that part, you can do the second part.
Okay, great.
So at our first meeting, we did talk about our charge. And so we talked about this idea of increasing our K-12 data literacy. And so we kind of tried to break down what we thought that would mean. And so we said, you know, thinking about, I guess what we're trying to do is the district has tons of data. They're always bringing us data. And a lot of it is a little bit, it's predictable in a good way. Like, we know there's always going to be MCAS, there's always going to be AP, you know, we know that right now we're using STAR, so we can always anticipate there's going to be STAR benchmark data or DIBELS or things like that. And so instead of us, every time we get data being like, whoa, you know, being able to anticipate it and say, okay, with this kind of data, we already know these are the types of trends and patterns we're going to be looking for. So that means that we don't have as much sort of pre-work to be doing, but they also have less pre-work to be doing because they know what it is that we're looking for. And in general, we're looking for the same thing that they're looking for. We all want to see those trends and patterns, you know, going in the right direction. We talked about that concept. basic concepts about data and measurement, so different types of data and what it does or does not give us. Understanding those most common tools that we have, like I named MCAS, P-DIBBLES, et cetera. Looking beyond academic assessments, so we do talk sometimes about attendance, community survey data. Sometimes we have that from Bill. PAIR, our holistic, more student attitudes and SEL type data. We talked about subgroups and needing to be mindful of what those are and how they might show up or not in different data. And then lastly, being more clear about what we're looking for in presentations. And so we said developing a template that outlines what we would like to see and hear when we're getting presentations given to us, and being more thoughtful about the timing of presentations, because a couple of times we've had presentations and it's like, oh, well, if I was coming in 2 weeks, I'd have the data.
Yeah.
And so next year, we can
Right.
think back to that and try to time those better, that will be better all around for us.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how we developed our charge. And that's the first thing we said we were gonna do. But I'd love to hear if anyone has thoughts or if you wanna say more, Carrie.
No, I was just saying, I think, to align with the sort of intention around resources, I think one opportunity for us to start thinking about is what Maria just said, which is we could build almost a cheat sheet, right? So
Yeah.
that maybe, it ends up in our packet the week that we're having DIBBLES, just as a reminder, and we make it available so that as a succession plan, if, one of us leaves and the next person on can have that, so I think that would be an example of a simple resource that we could create that might be helpful, just as a refresher and reminder. That was the only other thing. I just think data literacy all across the board, right? We're always talking about having common language and common understanding, so. But it's a work in progress, so like as you sort of digest it, and you, leadership as well, right? As you would digest, if there are other ideas, we're open to those. I think the other piece of this is Maria and I put together, a proposed potential template with a variety of pieces in it. But, Bill and Ryan, we would look to you to, Maria and I were very committed to it's a collaborative process, right? We're not telling you that this has to be in this. These are sort of ideas. And just like I know you've worked with staff on presentations, maybe you could look at this and think about what makes sense. And we certainly don't want to create burden for our staff. We want this to feel helpful. And so to the extent it is, these are the kinds of things that we feel like might be important. These are the kinds of things that we always ask about. And so how can we help our staff, feel like we never want them to feel like it's a gotcha moment, right? We never want that for staff. So what can we do to support? Because the reality is like those presentations end up in our packets and we don't always, I'm definitely one of them, don't always have a chance far enough in advance to read it to get feedback for them to course correct or add that information. So to the extent we can address some of these, it might help everybody.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's not very different from
No,
what
it's
people are
not.
I was
generally
actually
doing.
thinking of that
I
when
think-
Jackie was presenting. I was
Yeah.
like, well, she's
It
sort of
is
did
really
that.
similar. I think
Yeah.
one of the things that we're asking for that is new though is this idea of some like trend data,
Yeah.
because it is really hard to look at a snapshot and try to remember like where were we last year and what does this mean?
Well, we always ask.
And we always
too.
ask, right?
We
And
always
so
ask.
yes, and so instead of them then being like, oh, I don't remember, and us being like, well, we can't interpret this without understanding where we've been.
Yeah.
So I think like that idea, like getting into the habit of more trend data,
Yep.
and asking them to think, what patterns do you think are significant in your
Yeah.
data? So because they've done this already, they've had these
They know.
conversations, and so that will help us
Yep.
understand, what it is that they're seeking.
Yeah.
I think that's something new. But other than that, it's kind of a similar
It's
flow.
similar. I think
to
we
what
also adopted a few things based on some of the great presentations we've seen this year. I won't call anybody out, but the bullet around challenges and plans for addressing, we're curious about what questions are you addressing as a team? You may not have answers right now, but like we'd love to hear sort of what are you curious about, what stories you're telling yourself about the data and you're trying to get confirmation or, disconfirming evidence of that. So I guess we want, sort of Maria put up there, the trust factor, how important that is. I think to the extent that the staff feel efficacious in coming here to say, like, we have this question, we don't have the answer, that also builds trust, right? It's transparency and trust. So I think just inviting teachers to bring some of their questions and wonderings is a great thing. And I think some of them are already doing that, but just to have that be more consistent,
We also really liked seeing a lot of them have done this year, the opening with a mission or core
Yeah.
values for their department is really nice to see. It kind of helps us get an understanding of like that it is a cohesive team and that they have the sort of identity around the type of learning that they're trying to provide for kids. I feel like that's been really, really nice to see
it's
this year.
super grounding. I
It
mean,
is,
it's just
and I
a
think,
North Star.
that's been sort of nice and new.
Yeah.
That we wanted to see continue. Yeah. But all that said, I think if you guys have thoughts on what type, so Carrie and I owe you 2 resources before June. June is coming, so
But
if
we
you
can do
have
the cheat
thoughts.
sheet. That would be-
I think a cheat sheet
that
is
would be
great,
one.
yeah. I mean, it can be a living document too.
Yeah,
You can
that's what
add
I was
to over
thinking.
time.
Yeah.
If there's anything else in particular that you are looking for, that you would like us to kind of look into, I'm happy to.
I'm just thinking, well, first of all, I was hesitant about this goal, but now as it's evolved and you're explaining this, I like it. I agree with it. And I'm not sure if some of these presentations that we've seen include it, but a lot of it's just grade level. So this is 3rd grade, it's 4th grade, this is 5th grade. I'd like to somehow track the class. Yeah, track the cohort,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah,
I think
there's a
it tells
story
more
in
of a
That's
story.
the trend data
I think
we're
it-
looking for.
I think both, I think it tells a good story potentially. I'm not
It
sure
really
we
does.
generally see that. I think we just see grade specific data.
Yeah.
Yep.
'Cause that's how we can determine progress as well.
Well, I think too, I mean, it's timely that we were having the discussion about the curriculum cycle because that's gonna have to be part of the story at some point if you're gonna do a really good review of curriculum. You're
Yep.
gonna have to follow
Yep.
Yeah.
and see where they're headed, so
Yeah.
at some
They'll
point.
dovetail, yeah.
I wonder if the other resource, that the woman that we watched her
Oh, yeah.
video,
Mhm.
I feel like everybody should watch that.
Yeah.
Reason, but she only sent the slides. and-
Journey's
Yeah, it's not recorded. It was so good.
it was. Yeah, I can look into that
So
though.
good.
She's published some stuff. I'll see if there's anything.
Yeah,
sort of-
cause she
Like a
she dealt
one-pager on her.
she dealt with some topics that are, controversial right now and talked about them in a way that makes them accessible and inviting to everybody in terms of equity talks, discussions. Well, it just like thinking about equity from like
The equity in the academic context.
as an academic concept
It's about
and
access to
and data and access to curriculum. So
Which
it
is our number
really
one job.
it really felt like it was a
Right.
place where
Yeah.
even people who disagree at a high level about this could find common ground or at least a way to talk about this at a different from a
Yeah.
different level.
Mhm.
I just thought she was really good. So
Yeah,
if we
that's
could
a good idea.
find one of her talks or something.
All right, well, you guys have some stuff to look
Yeah.
forward to.
I love it.
Yay.
That sounds good. All right, great. So, I mean, I think our goals discussion is ongoing. That was a good update for today, specific to data.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll keep.
Yeah.
I think it's more like a misprint, so there actually, there really is.
It was really a goal.
It's correct
Yeah,
on the yellow
it's
agenda.
correct on the
just not
yellow,
on
but
the-
not on the
Oh,
blue.
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't policy.
And the yellow is what went out to, this
Oh,
is
yeah,
our,
okay.
Update.
right, so, yeah, because there's no actual policy subcommittee, it's our school committee. Well, like,
Wait a minute, I'm
it's
just
our
a policy
committee.
subcommittee.
It's our data subcommittee.
Yeah,
data
that
subcommittee.
we're- We're creating as we go,
Exactly,
flying and building the plane at the same time.
that's right, good job.
I'm trying.
All right, we already moved to Tom's.
Yep.
So we're, just approval of some minutes here from April 7th.
Well, Janice, you got this? Any questions?
No.
You got it.
Commissioner on.
I think Melanie does a good job with this.
All right, I make a motion that the school committee vote to approve the April 7th, 2025 minutes as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, no warrants for tonight, no correspondences, any other business?
I don't know if this counts, but
Of course it
I don't know where to put it, but it is Teacher Appreciation Week.
Yes.
And I just wanted to give a shout out to the sailor shout outs that went out today in email across the district, asking for families and students to type in on a Google form some kind words about an educator. And I just think that's a great idea. And I wanted to just, if possible, if anyone's listening, call attention to it. Because, it's Teacher Appreciation Week. And obviously, so much of what we do is about teachers. And we love them. And we want them to feel all that love to in whatever ways that we can. And I know each school is doing some cool stuff for the teachers. It's been really fun to see and take part in. But I just wanted to add.
And on that note, I will add annual town election, May 29th. Please go vote. Carrie and I are re-election.
That's late.
It
Yeah,
is
it's very
like-
late.
It's because of Memorial Day.
Yeah.
They did it 26.
Yeah, I feel like it's always been like earlier.
Yeah, it's usually
It's
mid.
usually the
Yeah.
20th
It's
or
usually mid.
something.
It's very, very
Yeah,
mid.
just,
Almost like 2 weeks.
yeah.
Other important things on the ballot, including the VOTEC vote for that
Yes.
funding, so
I think that
we
is
all attend.
really important, and I don't know
Agreed.
whose turn it is to do the town updates next week, but whoever it is, maybe could mention that a little, because I think people might not realize it passed in Scituate with flying colors to approve the new Vocatech school building project, but part 2 is to approve the debt exclusion. And if we do not approve the debt exclusion, then we have to find money out of our town budget to pay. We still owe the money either way.
Yeah.
And so the debt exclusion spreads it out across every family in town, whereas otherwise it comes out of our budget directly, and that's it would be a big deal if it
It
failed.
doesn't
If it
just
failed in
fail, the
Marshfield.
regular
Right.
debt exclusion.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It just
Yeah.
still goes forward.
Yeah.
Right, we're paying for it one way or the other. We've already approved that part.
So who's next week? I was today, so.
We'll have to look up the list.
Yeah.
That would be Mr. Lom.
There you go. So you can talk about it. Thank you,
That'd
Sam.
be great. You're all right.
And not a problem, but the election is May 31st.
Oh, sorry, I had a
May 30th.
small thought that would be
29th
wrong.
wasn't right, because
Yeah.
26 was Monday. I was like, that's not right.
Something else is happening on the 29th.
What?
Oh,
You're out of
yes,
town?
but-
Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
Absentee
thank you for
ballot.
the correction, Seth.
You can absentee ballot, right?
All right.
Absentee ballot.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, if nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 7:47.
Second?
All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.